What's going on, guys? So I'm going to tell you this is going to be a hard video for some folks to swallow, because I'm going to demonstrate with math why I generally make the recommendations that I make in regards to what type of truck you should use to tow certain types of RVs. Almost every video I make where I do a review of an RV, I usually mention either at the beginning or some point throughout the video that I recommend a certain size truck for that specific RV I'm reviewing. And there's a reason for it. It's just not, it's not this arbitrary number that I'm throwing out there. What I'm doing is I'm basing it off of some numbers that you may be very aware of, but some numbers that you may not be very aware of. As a disclaimer real quick, if you are an avid RVer, if you've been towing for years, if you tow other trailers, if you have tons and tons of, tribal knowledge in terms of, how to tow, what you've been towing since you were 5 years old, and, you lived on a farm and you've been towing trailers this whole time, or you drive a big rig and you have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on the road towing, and you feel safe with your setup and you know that you're doing things correctly, then you can disregard this video, because this video may not be for you. This video is for those folks who question, some of the numbers and some of the reasoning I put behind the numbers and the recommendations I give when it comes to towing RVs. So perfect example is going to be this Surveyor as well as a Brookstone. Let's talk about it. Hang tight. I'll be right back. Okay, so let's talk about the weight of both of these RVs first and foremost. The dry weight of the Brookstone, which is clearly indicated on a sticker that I'm going to show you. The dry weight of our Brookstone is 14,590 pounds, 42 feet 2 inches long. This is a full profile unit, which means it's as tall as they get, really, and it's a wide body chassis, so it's about 8.5 feet wide. When I make a recommendation for something like this, I usually base it off of the gross vehicle weight rating of the RV. And on this RV, the gross vehicle weight rating is 17,500 pounds, giving it 2,851 pounds worth of cargo capacity. Now, when they built this unit, they added things to it that contributed to the dry weight, which makes this one heavier than your typical Brookstone, such as the fact that there's a generator underneath here, right? So we have a generator inside of here. We have the washer and dryer up front. There's other features that were kind of baked into here. Plus, we've added weight to this unit as well. So this specific unit as it sits is a relatively heavy, long, and tall fifth wheel, plus extra wide. And when I make a recommendation on something like this, I'm basing it on several things. First of all, I would really only recommend a dually for this setup. We got about 3,500 pounds worth of pin weight that presses down when we actually use the scale and weight it, right? And the RV itself being over 42 feet long and over 13 feet tall, plus 8.5 feet wide, creates a really interesting wind profile going down the road. So a dually, of course, is going to give you the most stability. It's also going to give you some redundancy in terms of tires, right? The tires you have on the back of your truck, you got 2 extra tires. If you have a blowout, you have a bit of a fail-safe there to prevent the truck from possibly dipping down or even losing control. So those are some reasons why I recommend a dually, but mainly because of the ability for it to handle the weight, the length, the height, and the width. So it acts as more of an anchor for something like this than a single rear wheel truck might. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't single rear wheel trucks that could haul this and handle the payload capacity. Lord knows that manufacturers have upped the gross vehicle weight rating of pickup trucks lately to where even certain 3/4 ton trucks have like over 4,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity. But let's say that you have a 3/4 ton pickup truck with 4,000 pounds of cargo capacity. First of all, that's going to be a rare truck. Not all of the trucks are going to have that. It's probably going to be in a relatively mid-level trim. You're probably not going to see that in a platinum or a limited trim model. And the thing you want to keep in mind is, once you load the pin weight, which we weighed this, 3,500 pounds worth of pin weight on our specific fifth wheel. You load that on the back of a pickup truck with 4,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity. What does that leave you? 500 pounds, right? 3,500 pounds, 4,000 pounds, you subtract it. Now, let's factor the hitch in. Well, if you're using a goose box, you've done a couple things. First of all, we've added weight to the front of the RV. We've added about 100 pounds more than a traditional pin box. So if a traditional pin box is about 70 pounds, this is about 170 pounds. So you're adding an additional 100 pounds to the truck, plus the weight of the goose ball, which is probably only 10, 15 pounds at the most. But that said, you add about 110 pounds to that, and you've reduced that 500 pounds worth of remaining cargo capacity by over 100 pounds. So now you have about 385 pounds worth of remaining cargo capacity on a 4,000 pound payload equipped truck. Now, who are you going to be hauling in the truck with you? How much do the passengers in the truck weigh? And do you believe that all the cargo capacity is designed just for predominantly what's in the bed of the truck? Or do you believe that the manufacturer also included some of that cargo capacity for the occupants, the supplies, and the things that are inside of the vehicle? So do you pack less than 385 pounds total worth of gear inside of your truck? Again, how much do you weigh? How much does your spouse weigh? How much do the kids weigh? The dog, plus the cooler and all the other stuff that you're going to throw inside of your vehicle. If you have a toolbox, all the stuff you throw inside of the toolbox, any aftermarket accessories you've put on your vehicle, bumpers, winches, lights, all of that stuff. What you can find out very quickly is that you have well over 500 to 700 pounds worth of gear on average loaded into the truck. Manufacturers usually claim about 600 pounds, the weight being for a family of 4. Again, understanding what you're putting in the vehicle is going to be very important to understand how much payload capacity your truck actually has. Because again, that payload capacity, the 4,000 pounds, isn't just for your RV. But to make things even more real, again, a 4,000 pound payload capacity on a 3/4 ton truck, and even many 1-ton trucks, is not a realistic payload capacity. Some trucks have them. Some trucks have an enhanced gross vehicle weight rating to be able to supply extra capacity for weight. But most trucks, most of the 3/4 ton and 1-ton single rear wheel trucks that you will see on a dealership lot are going to have generally between about 2,200 pounds cargo capacity if it's a high trim 3/4 ton truck. And it may go up to about 3,800 pounds if it's a high-trim 1-ton single rear-wheel truck. In most cases, 3,000 to 3,200 pounds is typically what you're going to have. Not all trucks. Again, I may not be talking to you specifically. You may have the truck that has those capacities, but many, many, many people do not. And if you go to an RV dealership and you don't know your numbers, you may find out that you're talking to someone who's trying to sell you into something that might not be the right size and weight for your specific truck to handle accordingly. Now, let's factor one other thing into this equation that we have to understand. So, even if you have the numbers and your truck is set up properly, are you ideally set up for the size of RV that you have? There are shorter fifth wheels that weigh more than this. Like there's a Jayco Pinnacle, and it weighs more than this does dry, but it's 10 feet shorter. So understanding that length and height have a lot to do with it as well, that if you have a relatively short fifth wheel, if it's a little heavier, your truck may handle it a little better than a longer fifth wheel that's taller and wider, but lighter, if that makes sense. And then again, the reason why I generally will give a dually recommendation for really long RVs is because of that traction patch, the tires actually on the ground. You got 4 tires making contact with the ground, which makes the back of the truck far more difficult to move and negotiate from a trailer perspective, basically how the trailer impacts the truck. And then also the redundancy, if you have a tire failure, the fact that you have 3 additional tires that can continue to carry you on until you can make your way to a place that can repair or replace your tire. Okay, so that's fifth wheels. Let's talk about travel trailers. So we have the Surveyor here, great example of what I consider to be on the higher end, weight-wise, of what a half-ton truck should be able to tow. The reason why I say that is the dry weight on this unit is typically going to be about 5,200 pounds. 5,200 pounds means that that's how you get it from the dealership. That's how it's going to come to them. Once you add propane, you add batteries and all of that, you're probably going to be at about 5,400 pounds. Now, a lot of people would say, well, there's a lot of half-ton trucks. They're rated for 10,000, 11,000, 14,000 pounds worth of towing capacity. But here's the thing to keep in mind. Most of them are not the trucks you are going to buy. Most of the trucks with the maximum towing capacity are relatively rare, and they're very, very difficult to find, and you typically have to order them. Now, some dealerships may have them. Some dealerships may have some of these magical trucks with these really, really great towing numbers, really, really great payload capacities. But your typical half-ton truck, if you go out and check your truck, unless you specifically know your numbers and you bought your truck with those numbers in mind and you ordered your truck, or you knew what you looked for and you hunted down the truck that you needed based on what you were gonna tow, if you don't know this, go out and check the door on your truck, and you'll probably find that most half-ton trucks are going to be between about 1,200 pounds and 1,800 pounds worth of cargo capacity. And that's not just the cargo you put behind it on the bumper. That's also including the people, the supplies, and the stuff you put in the truck, as well as the towing equipment you use on the truck, your hitch, all of that stuff. So you can't just think about it from the perspective of, I saw a commercial, they said, hey, this truck can tow 12,000 pounds, best in class, and it has 3,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity. That's not your truck. That's probably not the truck you bought, again, unless you specifically spec'd your truck out with a certain package to be able to accommodate for that. Sorry about that. I got sandhill cranes making a bunch of noise behind me. Now, when we talk about this, again, why would I say, though, this Surveyor, which is relatively light, about 5,300 pounds is what most people are going to go to a dealership lot and see one of these weighing, and maybe 5,450 pounds in that range of extra weight when you add propane and batteries and stuff like that. Well, the reason why is because this trailer, as it sits, has about 650 pounds worth of tongue weight on it. Well, as it sits before you put the weight distribution hitch on the front of it, which means that the weight of the trailer isn't quite as important as how much weight is actually being applied to the back of your truck. It's the combination of both. So let me give you an example of this. So if you have an F-150 or a Chevy 1500 or Ram 1500, and you look at that door sticker, and let's just say it averages out, it's 1,500 pounds worth of cargo capacity on your truck. And you're like, well, this thing is, what, 5,500 pounds? We got 650 pounds worth of hitch weight. I'm in really good shape. I got like 900 pounds worth of cargo capacity remaining, right? Well, let's think about that real quick. So once we load this thing up with propane and batteries, and because all of that sits pretty much at the front, once we use a weight distribution hitch on it, which generally weighs over 100 pounds, unless it's like the Anderson weight distribution hitch, you're adding about 250 pounds worth of weight to the front. Propane cans themselves, no, a 20-pound propane can doesn't weigh 20 pounds. It's 20 pounds of material in that propane can. So each one of those propane cans is going to weigh closer to 30 to 40 pounds each. So you're talking about, let's just say 75 pounds worth of the propane can and the material that's inside of it. Talk about an AGM battery that you throw up front. You're talking nearly 60 to 70 pounds right there. So you're talking in the 120 pound range right off the bat, 130 pounds just there. And then you throw a weight distribution hitch on, right? Weight distribution hitch, the bars, all of that stuff, that's going to add weight to your truck, but also the front section of your trailer, this whole area right here when you're hitched up, about 120 pounds, right? So now we're about 250 pounds worth of weight that we've now added in addition to the 650 pounds that are here. So I hope all of this math is kind of adding up. So now we're closer to about 900 pounds worth of weight pressing on the back of your vehicle. So you're like, well, that's fine. You know, I don't have a super heavy family, right? We still have 600 pounds worth of cargo capacity. That's super cool. What haven't I talked about? I haven't talked about what you load inside of your RV. All the stuff you throw inside of here, all of your supplies, all of your tire chocks, all of your equipment, your tables, and then what you throw inside of the RV, all the stuff you're going to put inside here. So let's just assume that it's between 200 to 300 pounds, which is, I think, on the low average of what most people might put in. Now, some of that weight is going to transfer to your axles, so keep that in mind. Some of the weight will transfer up here. It depends on where it is. If it's closer to the front, more of that weight's going to transition to the back of your vehicle. If it's closer to your axles, more of that weight's going to transition back there. So now let's talk about what we put in the bed of our truck. Do you have a generator? Do you have bicycles? Do you have fishing gear? Do you have an animal? Do you have other skis? Do you have kayaks? Do you have an ATV? Do you have stuff that you put in the bed of your truck? And most people, when they have a travel trailer, like to be outdoorsy, and they put stuff in the bed of their truck as well. One of the big perks of getting a travel trailer is the fact that it leaves your bed free and clear to put whatever you want in it. Maybe you have a crossover toolbox that's loaded with tools and a battery booster and jumper cables and all sorts of different things. Now, what haven't we done yet? We haven't even put the people in the vehicle. You can be as light as you want to be, but unless you weigh negative, you're not adding any capacity back to your vehicle. So now we're in a scenario where if you have a family of 4, and again, the manufacturers like to say a family of 4 weighs 600 pounds, but in many cases, the family of 4 weighs more than that. Some weigh less than that, right? It just really depends on the size of your family, the ages of your children, I mean, how quickly they're growing, all of that stuff. But a typical family of 4 these days weigh closer to 750 pounds. Now, if you're a couple and you weigh a lot less, then you might have some wiggle room left if you don't have so much stuff loaded in your vehicle, and you can give some of that weight back for the people in your vehicle. But if you look at trucks like my GMC Denali half-ton truck, the door sticker says of the 1,480-something pounds of cargo capacity the truck has, only 880 pounds is designed for the trailer itself, because they're factoring in the rest of that for the people and the supplies that are inside of the truck, if that makes sense. They're factoring about 600 pounds for the people and supplies in the truck itself. So that's where you have to be careful, and you have to know your numbers. Again, the folks who will leave comments on here are going to be like, man, JD just hates half-ton trucks. No, I don't. I wouldn't have bought a half-ton truck if I hated it. I really wanted to get a truck that I could do testing with and was comfortable. That was more comfortable to drive and ride in than my F450, and still had the capability of acting as an everyday awesome utility vehicle that gave me the capability of using it as a truck while at the same time taking my family out and being able to tow, you know, reasonably sized travel trailers. Anyways, guys, I sure hope that this helps. I don't think anybody would be able to go back and find any time on any video that I've ever filmed where I have criticized a half-ton truck and said that they don't tow anything, or that they're horrible trucks, or that you shouldn't buy half-ton trucks. Anytime I talk about half-ton trucks, it's quantifying the numbers. It's quantifying what you plan on towing. And I just quite don't understand why some folks get up in arms and get upset when I'm trying to do something and say something that has their best interests in mind. That's really what it comes down to. I'm only giving these recommendations because I want you to have the best, safest towing experience and the most carefree towing experience without white-knuckling it and stressing out the whole time. I don't get paid commission by any truck manufacturer. I don't get paid more money because somebody buys a 3/4 ton truck versus a 1-ton truck. I just create content based on my opinion and based on how I feel about certain scenarios, given what I think about. That's what I'm trying to relay to you. It's not what me trying to put myself in your shoes. It's me trying to put you in my shoes so you understand what I think about when I look at trucks, when I look at trailers, when I look at the numbers, and why it would matter to me that I have a truck that is more than capable enough for hauling a certain size trailer based on the weight of the trailer, the weight of the tongue weight pressing down the payload on the truck, as well as what's in the truck and what I plan on doing with that combination. I sure hope you liked the video. Please leave a comment below. I love criticism. I really do, as long as it's respectful criticism. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. I'm going to enjoy this beautiful sunset, and we'll talk to you again very soon.